Welcome to the Boxing Gossip channel. As ever, my thanks for tuning in. If you haven't done so, or if you're new, please take the time to press subscribe so you can check out all of my other stuff. Recently on the channel, I did an extended look-ahead preview to Anthony Joshua versus Joseph Parker. It was a video that did fairly well. It's currently sitting on over 6,000 views and continuing to climb. So many thanks to everyone who checked out that video or put it up on Facebook or Twitter or whatever you did. Massively appreciated. Off the back of that video, I received a lot of comments relating to the weight of both fighters, especially from Joseph Parker fans in New Zealand. I must have received in excess of 25 messages where people were advising me that they believed Joseph Parker was going to come in very, very light for his next fight, that he was mixing things up with his training camp, he brought on a new person, etc, etc, etc. This particular video, we may talk a little bit about Joseph Parker's weight. This particular video is actually talking about Anthony Joshua's weight in the lead up to this fight. Joshua has posted on Snapchat. Now, I've got to admit, I'm not on Snapchat. I haven't seen this, but I've seen it from a number of sources for people I know, and also reported in the boxing media that Joshua posted a picture of him or a video of him weighing in on Snapchat, and at the weigh-in, not that it was an official weigh-in, but it showed his weight as 243 pounds. Now for me, that's very, very interesting. I've actually been extremely questioning of both Anthony Joshua and Joseph Parker with regards to their weigh-ins, because their weights have continued to climb throughout their professional career, and to my mind, it's getting to the point where they've put on so much weight and so much muscle and so much bulk that it's actually starting to have a negative effect. So let's talk Joshua first. Maybe we'll look at Parker in a minute. Joshua made his professional debut in October 2013, weighing in at 230 pounds. He actually hit a career lowest in his third fight when he weighed in, this is November 2013, at 229 pounds. Subsequent to that, he's been getting heavy. February 2014, I don't know if Joshua had a good Christmas that year, but subsequent to his career lightest in his third fight at 229, he's weighed in at 241 in his fourth fight, and this is February 2014. As we move towards mid-2015, he's actually weighed in at 248 pounds against Zumbano Love, 248 pounds against Kevin Johnson. The climb's continued. You know, by the time he's had his more recent fights, he was 250 against Klitschko. He was 254, a career heaviest, against Carlos Takam. So whilst Joshua's weight has gone up and down between fights, generally, if you look at the overall trajectory, his weight has gone up and up and up. And actually, if you think about it, someone who's weighed as low as 229 to be weighing in at 254 in his last fight, that is a very, very substantial weight increase. And my fear is that that would make Joshua a slower fighter, a less explosive fighter, a less mobile fighter, and would potentially mean he would become a more robotic, rigid type guy. I also believe Joshua's biggest concern is his stamina, especially highlighted the Dillian Whyte and Vladimir Klitschko fight. So when he took punishment and when he got hurt, it took him an increased amount of time, so we say, to recover. And obviously that recovery time is going to be difficult when you're so big and so heavy set and so muscular. So it's very interesting if this Snapchat is to be believed, that he's now 243 pounds. Now, I did a video a few days ago about a Chris Eubank Jr. tweet where he showed that he was weighing in at below the super middleweight limit. And in that video, I said that I was skeptical of him weighing in light. This wasn't an official weigh-in, and you know the scales weren't official, etc., etc. I'm going to remain consistent on this front and say that I will believe Joshua's weight loss when I see it. You know, when Joshua weighs in at 243 pounds at an official weigh-in at official scales, then I'll believe he's 243 pounds. But it's interesting that he's been out of camp, presumably, and his weight has gone down, if we're to believe the Snapchat, and gone down relatively significantly by 11 pounds since his fight with Carlos Takam. typically when a fighter's in camp, they'll actually lose weight. So, you know, potentially Joshua's down to 243, and we could see him back down to the 230s by the time he fights Parker. The counter argument would be that with a guy like Joshua's build, who's so heavy set and so muscular, perhaps in camp, if he starts lifting weights, etc., maybe he'll bulk up. You know, I don't know. But very interesting if it's true that Joshua's at 243 pounds. Eddie Hearn actually said, if I recall, ahead of his last fight against Cam, we can expect a lighter Joshua. And then he came out and weighed in at a career heaviest. So sometimes you do wonder whether there's smoke and mirrors around Joshua's weights. As I say, I believe it when I see it. But 243 pounds Joshua would be interesting. That's the same weight he was when he fought Dominic Brazil. It's 6 pounds less than Molina, 7 pounds less than Klitschko, and 11 pounds less than Carlos Takam. In fact, Joshua hasn't fought under 243 pounds since his fight with Michael Sprott, which dates back to 2014. So fair play to Joshua. If he is legitimately lighter, and if that proves to be the case, perhaps it shows that he's working on some of the perceived gaps in his game. You know, the perceived gaps being that maybe he is a bit stiff, a bit robotic, a bit plodding, and that he is someone with a tendency to gas and have stamina problems, especially when he's hit. Potentially he's taking that on board and looking to adapt. And if he is, then fair play to him, credit to him. You know, a lot of fighters need to take a loss before they adapt their game. If he can learn on the job and keep winning and still adapt and work on his mistakes as he's winning, then, you know, real credit goes to Joshua, and I believe it'll be massively to his benefit. You know, I watched some old tapes of Joshua, you know, on the way up the other day. I do believe he was a more mobile, more explosive fighter early on in his career. You look at that Takam fight, I believe he'd lost a little bit of snap. And that's inevitable. I don't know if any of you guys do sport. Look, I do long distance running. It's a very, very different sport to boxing. I couldn't compare the two. But as a general rule, what I could say is, if I'm putting on 10 pounds and doing running, I notice a significant distance, and I run at a very, very low level in comparison to the level that Joshua boxes at. But it seems obvious, doesn't it, that if you're putting on weight, half a stone, etc., that is going to have an impact on performance, and especially in a sport where you're being mobile for 36 minutes of explosive action, it's clear that certain builds are going to be beneficial and certain builds are going to be non-beneficial. I think if Joshua can get down to 243, it will make him a much better fighter. That's my take. I believe ahead of a Parker fight, it will make him a lot harder of an opponent for Joseph Parker. You know, if you look at Parker's advantages in that fight, a lot of Parker's obvious advantages: hand speed, potential mobility, potential athleticism. I mean, Joshua's an athlete in certain ways, but I mean, Parker's the one you could more naturally think of as using lateral movement, throwing fast combinations, coming in and out of range, you know, being on the back foot, being on the front foot. You know, you think of Parker having those advantages. Maybe those advantages wouldn't be so pronounced if Joshua were to come in at 243. So I think this is interesting news. I think it's relevant news, and I think if it is found to be true, the Parker-Joshua fight could be a great fight. You know, sometimes with heavyweight boxing, what you don't want to see is two guys who are so heavy, so muscle-bound, so stiff, so big, that it becomes almost like two bodybuilders in there. Sometimes when you see two heavyweights who are light, mobile, explosive, fast, athletic, you know, that's when the sport is at its best. And Joshua Parker could be that, especially if the rumours from the other side are true that Parker's going to be coming in light. So, I mean, let's touch on Parker, seeing as I've raised it. Parker made his professional debut in 2012, and he weighed in at 233 for his professional debut. Like Anthony Joshua, he was lighter a few fights into his career. When he fought Brian Minto in 2014, for example, he was only 226 pounds. So, you know, 226 pounds in 2014. We've seen, like Joshua, an upwards trajectory in those weights, getting heavier and heavier and heavier. By the time he fought Andy Ruiz, Razvan Cajano, Hughie Fury, he was up by the 245s, 246s. Career heaviest against Andy Ruiz, 246 3/4. Funnily enough, if you look at Parker as he stepped up in weights, you know, as he's now been in the high or mid to high 240s, I do feel Parker has been slightly disappointing in some of his later fights. You know, you look at that Razvan Cajano fight, you just wonder if Parker had been 15 pounds lighter, would he have got Kajanu out of there? You know, that was a laboured performance. The Hughie Fury fight, look, that's turned into a controversial fight. We've discussed Hughie Fury Parker in enough videos. I don't want to necessarily raise that again in this particular video. But Joseph Parker in the Kajanu fights, Joseph Parker in the Hughie Fury fights, I'm not looking at that guy and thinking that's the guy to beat Joshua. Joseph Parker on some earlier bits of form. You know, when Parker was on the way up, when he fought, I'm just looking down his legend now, when he fought Bowie Tapu, Jakob Saglam, you know, when he fought those sort of names, I appreciate they're a lot lower level, and obviously you're going to look more devastating against lower level names, but he just looks so much more explosive, so much more dangerous than the performances we've seen from Joseph Parker of late. And for me, it's no coincidence that he was 10 pounds lighter in those fights. So I think the same is to be said of both guys, and I think they're both guys who have put on weight throughout their professional careers. I think there's an element of them getting older, growing into their bills, filling out a bit more with age, and I think there's also an element of probably too much time lifting weights for both guys. My belief is both guys would be more effective 10 pounds lighter than their last fight dates, and who knows, potentially that can be happening. If the rumours are to be believed, Joseph Parker's going to be coming in a lot lighter, and I really think he should do, because he's a smaller man than Joshua. For my money, he doesn't punch as hard as Joshua. He doesn't have the range of Anthony Joshua. So you've got to say he's got some obvious disadvantages. Where can he create the angle to beat Joshua? And for me, where he can create that angle is by fighting at distances. You know, either moving around the ring, being outside, rushing in and ambushing Joshua, being the faster man, the more agile man, the man with the better foot speed, hand speed, etc. And I think all of those advantages will be more apparent if Parker weighs in lighter. So it's an interesting dynamic. Both guys not in a dissimilar position. Let's see if one or even both of them loses some weight. You know, it's going to be a fight where even at the weigh-in, there's still going to be discussion points. It's going to be one of those matchups. But I'm interested in this recent news from Anthony Joshua. Let me tell you this: if Joshua does weigh in lighter, you know, 240, and Parker weighs in at the similar weights he's been weighing in at, 245, 246, then I think Parker's in trouble. You know, Joseph Parker should not be coming into this fight 5 or 6 pounds heavier than Anthony Joshua. Let me tell you that. I think that would be to his negative. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it's an interesting angle to watch out for, and creates an extra layer of intrigue around this fight. As always, thank you for watching my channel. Let me know your thoughts on this content. Use the comment section below to let me know your take on this. Do you believe it? Do you think it's relevant? Whatever, leave your comments below. If you've enjoyed the content, please hit the thumbs up button. If you're new or if you haven't done so before, for whatever reason, please hit subscribe so you can check out all of my other stuff. Many thanks indeed for tuning in.